Hello, everyone, and welcome to another wonderful episode of Ask and Wonder, the show that brings together Christians and atheists, believers and non-believers of all stripes. We are here today to talk about the big questions once again. My name's Elliott, and if you're just a little bit confused as to who I am or why I'm introducing this one, you've missed a video. So pause this one right here, go back, check it out, and come join us again. So today we have an incredibly special guest, I think. Our wonderful Pedro Garcia is actually, he has stepped into the lion's den, so to speak, I guess. And he is going to answer some of our questions about the big topics in life. In the end of our two-part series, you had an atheist wonders about life, and now today, a Christian wonders about life. So this is going to be really fun. Pedro, are you excited, man?
I am. I'm very excited, and I don't know if I want to introduce this show anymore after doing the way you do it.
No. But I do want to plug that other video and all the other videos as
Yes.
well. I mean, if there's a single video so far on this channel that you haven't checked out, you can catch it on YouTube. There's a wonderful podcast on iTunes. Subscribe, like, comment, please, guys. Let's keep this conversation going.
Yes.
So, man, Pedro, let's jump into it, man. Let's get right into it.
Let's do it.
A lot of people are going to be familiar, with a little bit of your worldviews and your thoughts on stuff. But there was one thing in particular I found very interesting. I've heard you make this distinction a couple of times. You choose not to call yourself Christian. You often use the label follower of Christ. Is that correct?
That is correct.
What do you see as the distinction between those two? I'm not positive that I completely understand, and I'm sure there are a lot of others out there that would love to know, how do you tell the difference? What's the meaning behind those two things in your eyes?
That is a very good question. So it is true, Elliott, that I make that distinction. I would say that at the end of the day, they could be understood as the same thing, definitely. When it comes to definitions and how much words are loaded with significance and connotations, fortunately or unfortunately, this happens with words, with languages. So when one says Christian, there are so many strands of Christianity. There are so many people thinking very different concerning different doctrines of Christianity. And definitely, I am a Christian. That is for sure. The reason why I say I'm a follower of Christ is because I think it is in Him where I find truth, and I think Christ is bigger than Christianity itself. In
now
fact,
that's interesting.
Yeah, in fact, during the first century, some followers they would call it the way. Are you a follower of the way? That's the way they would call it during the first century. So Christianity also sometimes in these intellectual conversations could entail, Elliott, Christianity is a religion, and the definition of religion nowadays is a set of doctrines and rules and rituals that you have to go through in order to experience, the supernatural. And that definition doesn't truly entail the way I would understand the Christian faith, the Christian worldview, and definitely the revolution that Jesus meant for the world, from my perspective. So when I'm asked, definitely I'm a Christian, but when in intellectual conversations where definitions are important and all of this, Elliott, I usually go with follower of Christ.
So more of, if I'm understanding it, kind of when you use that terminology, you're looking more in a broader scope of kind of how, let's say, Jesus's actions in the world in the past were, and how they were experienced and perceived by people, as opposed to, say, just the bullet points of the doctrine, right? That's kind of where you see it. Okay.
Bullet points of the doctrine, Elliot, and also sets of, let's put it this way, ritual. There are a few things that we
Yeah.
need to do, and the way, for example, Jesus is talking about the human flourishing and the human experience in, for example, the Sermon of the Mount. You put it exactly really well. It is, this is not an abstraction. This is not a philosophy that is just living out there, and then we think about it, but then we live life in a different way. This is actually a philosophy that is lived out.
Okay.
So that is a very important distinction for me.
Yeah, and I thought so too, and I think it's as you started off saying, I mean, yeah, when you just simply say the word Christian, when you say the word atheist, I mean, there is so much baggage that comes with it oftentimes, and it's good to parse that out and say, this may be something that I ascribe to, I may put this label on me, but here are the actual particulars of where I sit on that.
Yeah, you're right.
And I really appreciate the distinction there, the understanding. The next place I want to go real quick is, well, as quick as we can. I know this is a tough subject here, but I know in the past you've discussed about in your history how there was a time where you chose the label atheist for yourself, and you moved away from that. And I think there was a conversation in the past where you mentioned, it wasn't a wholesale jump, right? We didn't wake up one day as an atheist and go to bed as a follower of Christ, right? There was this kind of progress that you went down, and I was just wondering if you could maybe walk us through a little bit what drove you to, maybe just that first step of, hey, there is something else out there other than what we just see, and then maybe to God, to the God of the Bible, Christ, just what that process kind of looked like for us.
Yeah, definitely, Elliot. So it is interesting because I think nowadays when people use the term atheism, atheism is described as a person who lacks a belief in God or gods, which actually kind of pushes the definition really close to what agnosticism is. Oh, I don't have knowledge. And of course, there's different types of agnosticism, the hard one, the soft one. Is it possible to know about God? Is it actually, it's not possible, so we will never know. So when I was an atheist, I would say I would apply to me the type of atheism that or definition of atheism that people use nowadays, which is I lacked a belief in God. So, but there's a thing about this. When I have conversations with some friends, atheists, and they say this, there could be a presupposition there, which is, I lack a belief in God, but would you rather prefer to live in a world where God didn't exist? So that is a presupposition from some atheist secular thinkers that would say, yeah, I don't want God to exist, although I cannot prove that he doesn't exist, So I would say that I was more an atheist agnostic, meaning it was hard for me to believe that the God of the Bible, for example, which is a way to put it, is that I have never liked. The Bible is it's smaller than God. And this is something that some Christians are going to find strange to hear. But the God is bigger than the Bible. But well, just for the sake of the conversation, I never got to think, the God of the Bible seems to be kind of a very small thing. There's something out there. There must be, but this is bigger than any of the things that we hear. It has to be something bigger. My problem with atheism started from two main perspectives. The atheist cause, actually, as a pretext, as a context of it, the atheist cause is actually a very noble cause. The pure atheism, which is, look, I don't believe in God, therefore I really want to keep looking for and search for truth, and I'm going to start inside of me. I want to know why I exist, and I want to see what happens. The problem started with me, Elliott, when I realized that most of the problems that we see in the world, they all start and originate from humans.
Mm.
So at one point I realized, is it possible, how smart, just to put it in this way, how likely, let's put it better that way, it is that I'm going to find the solution to my problems from the same place where all my problems emerge, which is myself. And that is a noble cause. That is the pure atheism, not anti-theism. God is horrible, and everything related to religion is horrible. That type of conversation doesn't take us anywhere. The pure atheism, rational atheism. I'm an atheist, and I actually know why I'm an atheist. Type of atheism. That is something that I really, really respect. But I found that problem there. And then another thing that happens is just actually was a little bit of science and a little bit of critical thinking. I know that when we say critical thinking, some people might be saying, how is it possible that critical thinking could take you, Pedro, to believe in God, you know? And the same thing, I came to my senses a little bit and say, but how is it possible that my critical thinking gets me to understand, for example, the law of gravity, and just by describing it, I'm actually thinking that I know what objectively the law of gravity is. So this is the law of gravity, and the law of gravity is my understanding of how it works only. The fact that the law of gravity is there, and the fact that the law of gravity works the way it does, that is beyond the realm of critical thinking. I don't care about it. Therefore, in some cases, naturalism, which is, I don't have any expectations of any supernatural situation happening in the world. This didn't happen only with science. It also happened a little bit with philosophy itself. I was thinking, you know, how is it possible that we get to think about, you know, we're conscious, we can think about the future, we can think about the past. At the same time, we're stuck in the present bodily, but then we go to bed and we disappear for 8 hours. Then we wake up in the morning with the same conscience. Then definitely the question of why is there something rather than nothing? That is a question that, although many atheist thinkers, secular thinkers, and Christian thinkers, and many people all over the world have tried to say, this is a necessary question. This is not a necessary question. This is a question we should ask. This is a question that we shouldn't ask. All of this happened, Elliott, because it's just unavoidable. It is just an unavoidable question. And that is the question, Elliott. If it were for me, and if it weren't boring for people, that is exactly the question. I would be talking to people all the time, since I wake up in the morning till I go to bed, because it's such a fascinating question. So all of those questions, and it was very shocking to me also when I started to understand, wait a second, the universe is actually intelligible, like we can understand it, and there is an actual language to do so, which is mathematics. Those were all the questions that started to say, I just put everything together, and I said, I think there's definitely something. I don't know what to do. So that was the first step.
Kind of the first crack of just trying to you know, maybe expand your focus a little bit from where you were in your daily life, and just trying to, you know, look at the broadest of pictures, basically, for the universe. And that was kind of the first crack that ended up bringing you down and getting you to look into other things and so forth, basically. That's interesting. Definitely, man. That's very, and I think, you know, there were a couple of points in there, you know, you brought up that are just wonderful to go into. And on that last one, I'll tell you, I've lost some friends by talking to them about this stuff from day to night. So not everybody's as receptive.
I know.
But when we get a chance to really have, you know, these knockout and drag down arguments, man, and just
Yeah.
really delve into it, it's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
There's one thing I think you said in the last discussion that we had that I found particularly interesting, and I think that it might be helpful. You've kind of mentioned this just a little bit in passing, where you know, the simple fact that the world around us seems to be describable, right, in and of itself. You know, the fact that I can go build a table with math and use this stuff and put it together and understand it. In the last discussion, I think you mentioned how there's a possibility that type of description and understanding on such a deep level really takes away the fundamental meaning of what something is. And I'm just wondering if you could kind of expand a little bit on that. Is there anything in particular you can think of for yourself, maybe in the past, you know, you found such more joy or more interest in something, and then as you kind of described it more, it lost that for you?
Well, that is a fascinating question, Elliot. So,
I told you I'd come out with the big guns.
yeah, that is a very good question. So I think that I hope actually I explained myself well last time. But what I mean with the world being describable, this is what happens when, for example, I, as a Christian, as a follower of Christ, I say, God created the universe. This is what happens with this sentence, Elliot. I can tell you about God, how much he has decided to reveal himself to us, plus what I can learn from the things around me, the way he actually created the world. But in ultimate instance and in essence, I cannot tell you really much about him. I mean, with my finite mind, that's the noun of the sentence. With the word created, God created the universe. So with created, I came to the point, the realization that we human beings actually don't create. I don't think, because everything that is around us, it's already there. We're just original at putting things together that are already in existence, because what we mean with God created is that he created out of nothing, something I really don't understand. And then when we talk about the universe, God created the universe. The universe is an entity that is out there. Some people might say, you know, no, actually it's not real, but I think it's real, it's there. We can describe it, but when we go and describe it, we can only describe it, but we cannot explain what things objectively are. So in just the sentence, God created the universe, the more I explore it, the less I know about it.
Interesting. That was, yeah.
In terms of theology, in terms of in terms of science. So the parts of the universe can be applied for our atheist friends or secular thinkers as well. When we describe the world, we're not truly actually discovering anything. It is only there, and we can only describe it. That is it. So when I realized that both in that sense, Christians and skeptics are kind of, in a sense, not knowing truly, we do experience things that I think they're real, but then in ultimate instance, we just don't know. At that point, I just realized, wait a second, why should I close myself to the experience of a spiritual realm that perhaps it is true? And then the question that refrains many thinkers and people all around the world, Elliot, which is, why are there so many religions in the world? There seem to be 4,200, I think I read last time. Yeah. What is it? How can one be true and the others cannot be true? The first time that I saw that number of religions, my reaction was, wait a second. If there are that many religions, what if this is actually a fact that is telling you that there is something else beyond nature, because everyone is actually coming to this conclusion that matter, energy, space and time is not everything that there is. Because it would be so cool to see all the civilizations throughout history not having any particular inclination in thinking about the supernatural, but we all have ended up talking about this. Yesterday, I interviewed a friend, Jim Palmer. He's an ex-pastor, and he now is a secular thinker, amazing. And he was talking, Elliott, about non-religious spirituality from his secular perspective. So it just there's such a tendency, which, for example, Calvin, I think he called in Latin sensus divinitatis, which is a sense of the divine.
Sure.
With this, I'm not saying, therefore, God, the Bible, and Jesus Christ. That's another conversation. I'm not jumping there. But to go back to the question, just summarizing it, is I actually don't know things when I claim that I know them in ultimate instance. It's a little bit of the existential question of Soren Kierkegaard, or the existentialists in the 19th century. But then when I talk about faith, I don't talk about a blind faith as many people define it nowadays. Faith starts when all my evidence, I see the limitation of the actual evidence, but the evidence is limited. That doesn't mean that it's not pointing towards somewhere, towards a place. And that's where Jesus Christ comes and says, I'm going to give you a foundation of all this evidence, and also I'm going to give you a realm of experience that is going to make your human life be completely meaningful.
Wow. Yeah, very, very interesting, man. Definitely a lot of stuff in there to go into, and you know, maybe we just have a whole freaking other series on some of these guys, you know, in the future.
Elliot,
But I think,
do you have any thoughts about anything? You can go ahead, man. You can.
oh, I do have some stuff to push back on, but I think you actually led us perfectly,
Okay.
kind of into the next place where I was thinking.
Okay.
So have you heard anything recently about this NXIVM? It's spelled NXIVM. It's a very upsetting, traumatic experience regarding a cult and this guy that's doing some terrible things, definitely, and something for sure interesting, just an interesting read, to see how, you know, people were able to get out of those bad situations. But one of the things that you ended on right there, I think, is kind of, you know, perfect into this. There is an element of, you know, we can't know absolutely everything on pretty much every side. You know, I know when I first reached out to you, I mentioned, you know, regarding how a lot of times it feels my brother and sister atheists are standing on real solid grounding, and they're really confident in what they're saying. But when you push just a little bit, you get to a place where we do have to just say, you know, well, we don't know, you know, and we still need to move forward. You know, we still need to be able to go on to the next thing. And I recognize that exists for all of us. And I guess the question, especially, you know, kind of in the context of this, you know, belief has been used for such terrible things in the past. And I don't know if that's particularly an essence of belief itself, or it just stops with us. You know, it's just people are bad and we'll exploit everything we can. But is there a point for you where you definitively say belief has gone too far? You know, there's nothing wrong in believing, you know, let's say that tomorrow's going to be pretty similar to today in terms of up and down and left and right, or say there's nothing wrong in believing that there's something out there outside of us as people that connects all of us. But but at the point at which where your belief is causing the crusades, right? Maybe
Yeah.
that's the line. So
Yeah.
where does that line fall for you? Or is it very defined? Is it very definitive?
It's a yeah, good question, man. So just one quick point about knowing or not knowing.
Mm.
In terms of what we call evidence and critical thinking and all of this, that's where I think there is a limitation. But definitely the reason why I follow Christ is because I accept the existence of an actual spiritual realm that gives me the assurance that everything that I'm believing in is actually real. So, but definitely it's not that, of course, I don't know everything about God, let's say. That's actually a biblical perspective. In fact, that is biblical, that we cannot know everything about him. But that doesn't mean that I am not 100% sure, or 99, I would say actually 99% sure that God exists. But just to clarify that, and I wish also we had time to go through that,
we'll do more episodes. We'll
do more. So Elliott, good question about that. Something, has belief gone too far sometimes? Oh yeah, definitely. And the thing is that there is a common denominator with belief, and the common denominator is that belief doesn't happen without human beings existing, meaning perhaps in the future we'll know of a new race of aliens or whatever, but at this point belief emerges from the human mind. Now there are different types of beliefs, not only religious beliefs, political beliefs, sociological beliefs, and we have seen throughout history that any type of belief has the potential to end up being horrible. Anything. To the point that even the purest idea that you can ever think of could actually become a bad idea when instantiated by people. But there is a problem, and with this, the problem is that belief is not just a pure thing, just being there, and we become part of it, and then we abandon it, and then we continue living our lives. Belief is parts of experience, parts of emotions, parts of insecurities, parts of fears, parts of hopes, parts of suffering. It is all the whole perspective, the whole vision of what a human life is, ends up being parts of that belief. And that's why some people do incredible things with really bad ideas. And then there are people that do horrible things with really good ideas. And just to be honest, and I have zero problem to talk about this, Elliott. It was last year, the first time that I said, you know what, I think it's time for me to read about Christian history, meaning let's see what has happened in Christian history, you know. And what I felt is, I'll be honest with you, the other day we laughed together when you made the example of the lasagna. So just imagine that they give you 2 plates in front of you, and you have the perfect lasagna, and then you have a plate of how do you call that, eggs that have gone bad. How do you call them?
Oh yeah, rotten eggs.
Rotten eggs. Okay. So you have rotten eggs and you have lasagna, and you have a spoon. Okay. And then you go and get, with Jesus, you get a little bit of lasagna. Oh. And then you see what happens with some people did with the teachings of Christ really soon after he left us. And then you get a little bit of rotten eggs. Oh my gosh. And then you continue, you see some thinkers, lasagna. Oh my gosh, this is incredible. Yeah. And then eggs, and lasagna, eggs, lasagna, eggs, lasagna, eggs. That's a kind of an explanation of what happened. But The thing about me is that I never forget origins. I never forget that the whole story started with a very good lasagna. Everything started with very incredible lasagna. It is possible that some people don't like that type of lasagna, for sure, but it started with lasagna. And then when I read throughout history and I saw the incredible revolution that both the teachings of Christ and the letters of Paul had brought into the world, and then I saw the horrible things that some so-called Christians have done to people all around them, that was a huge problem for me, and that would have been a problem for me that would have actually refrained me from following Christ a little bit if I hadn't had the opportunity to actually look around and see, is there any system of thought in this world, any political idea, anything, even before the existence of Christianity at all, that was actually perfect in the way we want to judge it? The answer is no. Yeah. The answer is just no. So the basic principle of mathematics, common denominator. What is the common denominator of all these problems? Human beings. What did Jesus say about human beings? There's some type of brokenness, and I'm here to help you restore it and to give you a new life now and in the future. And that, of course, that is always the foundation, you know. And if one Jesus himself, if it is demonstrated, Paul says this in the letters, he's not real, which is he's real. That is impossible to demonstrate. But if it's demonstrated, and I think it could be demonstrated, that he didn't resurrect, yeah, we should be pitied the most, all that followed Christ. So
you have, I just want to say this, and I'll touch back on something real quick, but each time, man, I don't know how you're doing it. I don't know, maybe telepathy is real, but you're walking these answers like perfectly to the next kind of place that I was thinking about going, man. So we may have just tapped into something there, you know. Maybe I can start believing in something. But you know, I think what you said, you know, about the lasagna and the rotten eggs, first off, just a beautiful visual. But second off, yeah, I think there's, you know, there's a lot of times, you know, again, my fellow atheists, agnostics, skeptics, non-believers, they really seem to hold people today responsible for things like the Inquisition or the Crusades. Yeah. And it's kind of like, that's a little unfair, you know. I'm not positive, I could be wrong, but I don't think there's a single person that's still alive who participated in the Crusades. Yeah. So maybe my math's off, but you mentioned something about belief coming from us, you know, human beings being the common denominator. Yeah. But it seems to me that for those that do have a belief of some kind, whether it's just as simple as you were talking about with Palmer, I believe, Jim Palmer, just the other day, you mentioned that it's just this non-religious kind of spirituality. I think Christopher Hitchens used to talk about this. I think he used the term numinous. Oh, wow. But yeah, just this kind of something else that's out there. And oftentimes we put art and other things in there, you know, just beauty of a sunrise, you know, love. If all of that seems to be a strand that runs through every single one of us, is there a need for that extra strand? It seems to me almost that there's two strands, right? There's the one that is this feeling, this idea, this shared experience of these things that are hard to understand. But then there's that other strand that says, yes, and all of this sits together in this world, you know. Like, do you kind of see what I'm saying there? do you see it that way? Do you see them as two separate concepts that run through humanity, or do you see them as the same, one and the same type, really?
So Elliot, would you explain to me again? I'm sorry, man. The second strands that you're talking about. What is that one?
Yeah. So the first one again is just that
Belief.
that more of this, the love, the hope, the enjoyment of a pretty picture type stuff. And then there's that other belief that seems to sit in the realm of God being able to interact with us.
Okay.
And maybe this us getting together collectively to pray has maybe an effect or something. It seems to me as if there's a separate strand there, and I'm not positive if that's the way that you see it.
Yeah.
Does that make a little bit more sense? Maybe.
Oh yeah, and it's a very good question. Yeah. One thing I would say about the question, and just to bring a little bit of the lasagna and the rotten eggs again. What happened, Elliot, when I was having lasagna, and it relates to your question, I promise. When I was having lasagna and eggs, metaphorically, in this analogy, there is actually a problem, because you need to account for the existence of both the lasagna and the rotten eggs. And you need to actually account for the existence of a thing called metaphor, and a person actually put it into language. So even if we're describing things and everything is beautiful and we're doing all of this, but in order for me to do all of that, you need to account for a universe that is actually existence. So that is something that is always pushing me, like saying, but yeah, this is difficult, and perhaps this is not true, and perhaps this is true. But then the facts that I am alive and I'm thinking about these things and I exist, and then there's a reality out there, that is a question that is always pressing all my beliefs. How do you account with these theoretical critical thinking problems without an actual thing existence, which is the universe? And I don't want to take that for granted ever. I didn't want to take it for granted as an atheist / agnostic. I don't want to take it for granted as a follower of Christ, Christian now. But yeah, so again, the same idea, I bring it to this moment. We have certain experience in our lives, and this is life. Wake up in the morning, we eat, we hope, we smile, we cry, we have friendships. This is life. We experience all of that. But all of that, this strata of things, this is just a thing that is there. But as soon as a person is open to ask the question, why is this strata even there? How can I make sense of this? If of course, this is a question that might worry someone. It truly worries me. I like life, but at the same time, it puzzles me. I don't know if this happens to you, Elliot, but it puzzles me exactly the same as a Christian, as I was as an atheist. Even though that God has told us, hey, this is the reason why I don't understand anything. Meaning, this is so, I don't understand reality. This is so weird when you truly analyze. And definitely when I go there, I can stay there not for long, because it's so mind-boggling. I don't understand. So this new strata of thinking that you're talking about, that, as you said, this emerges as a belief internally, but this belief, as any beliefs, is caused by social pressure. I don't want to call it like social, like people are saying, hey, believe in this. I'm talking about biological, sociological reality, sociological pressure, meaning there are things that are happening around me and inside of me that are causing me to think, how is it possible that I feel this? But like love, for example, love is a beautiful thing. I cannot quantify this. And then I feel it.
You see them in the same as one strand.
Yes.
This understanding and feeling of love that seems to be just, totally universal, beyond comprehension. That is the exact same vein as the teachings of Christ or theology and so forth, that's the same for you.
Yes, the same, not only because I feel they are the same, but because it is actually the truth as I understand it from the biblical worldview, which is that the kingdom of heaven and creation are almost overlapping to be one reality, but are not there yet, which is the promise of the New Jerusalem coming in a metaphorical way, in which heaven and earth are going to become one. And these two realities that we sense are going to truly become one. Now, to give you some, to be honest in this analysis, the fact that I realize, or that I accept that this spiritual reality is as real as the one that we experience, could lead us to think very strange things.
Sure.
And this is when I would say the basic principle of Jesus for this is be humble. If you remove humbleness from this search, you're going to end up having people are going to take all of this for granted and going to start hurting people. They're going to start saying that they know things when they actually don't know them. What happens in Christianity, for example, I'll give you an example with the concept of the Trinity. I think the concept of the Trinity is actually true, but no one in this earth, Elliott, is going to be able to explain to you what the Trinity is, because it's beyond our perception. You understand? This happens with everything. I mean, I can give you an example with our own experience. I think we actually mentioned this the other day. If I say car to you, the same. A car, okay, I know what a car does, but then emotion, experience, the reality of a car itself, those are things that we need to just keep exploring. But I recognize that it's dangerous territory, because when I was an atheist and I said, I believe in Christ now, this is what happens, Elliott. I thought from ignorance, oh, now I'm going to be part of a family that actually they all think the same. And from Christianity, I zoom in, and then I saw many strands of Christianity, and then I zoomed in, and then I saw different denominations, and then I zoomed in, and inside of one denomination, I saw people that didn't agree inside the same denomination. I said, this is the type of humbleness. This is where fear, insecurity, and all these things start to make a play in the actual simple reality of Christ, which is, you can believe in me or not. If you do, just live the way I did, and of course believe that I'm God, because that is an essential part of all of this. And I'm here to help you, and I'm here to give you a life beyond the life that you're experiencing, and death is not the end. So just live the way I lived. There's no doctrine there. You are not going to find, Elliott, any doctrine about the Sermon of the Mount, because it's impossible. Justified and grace and irreconcilable grace and Calvinism, all of this is good. Just let's keep thinking about that and speculate healthily. But when it comes to the Sermon of the Mount, when you see a person suffering and you're walking around to the person and you go, now I can be Christ. There's no doctrine there. There's no doctrine. And that's why the Sermon of the Mount pushed me to become a follower of Christ. Whoever person would have said the Sermon of the Mount, I would have followed this person. It comes to be it comes to be that actually the same person that claimed and said all these things claimed himself to be God. So perfect combination.
So with that, so you mentioned Paul in his letters, which if I'm not mistaken, we still consider to be the oldest, the closest to Jesus's time of life.
Correct.
These were really the first things, and I believe there's a lot of individuals out there that reference Paul really as being the true foundation for the Christian belief, spreading as it did, and really codifying itself as well in the process. But you mentioned this, and you just now a little bit, and you mentioned it in the last answer to the question about if Jesus is discovered to not have been a person. There wasn't a single solitary man, Jesus of Nazareth, Jesus Christ, born in the manger, all that good stuff, that shakes the faith. So there really is something truly fundamental about Jesus being the Son of God. Is that correct? Am I understanding you correct on that?
Yeah, definitely.
So like I've heard in the past, in various debates, where someone has mentioned, when we go and we look at everything that we have out there historically that tells us Socrates was a person. Apparently, the more we look, the less grounding it has. There doesn't seem to be a good bit of stuff out there that we can 100% reliably corroborate and say, this was real. This guy said it. He did this. But I've heard a lot of people in response to that just simply say, but it doesn't matter. We still have the teachings, right? We still have the actions. But you're saying that doesn't seem to be true for Jesus's teachings. And I'm just wondering, why is it so critical that he is the Son of God? Would the rest of his teachings truly become unhelpful or less true, maybe, if we could just show? I don't even know how we would do that, but let's say tomorrow headline comes out and we prove Jesus wasn't the Son of God or never existed. Why does that shake the faith so much?
So there is something definitely in terms of Jesus existing or not. That point, I mean, I would say I know that there are some mythicists, I think they're called this way, that think that Jesus is not a real person. As you see, I was very careful because I was going to say Jesus Christ, but then I'm implementing a little bit of my belief. But Jesus as a real person, I mean, nowadays, I'm not a historian, but because of all the data that we have collected, and because of the what has happened to society after he existed, and the fact that he died on the cross, that is definitely not. I wouldn't put that into question now. I'll follow your line of thinking, Elliott. Let's imagine that one day we, in a very strange way that you and I actually cannot recognize at this moment, we come to know, he wasn't the Son of God. Let's say we discover his tomb and actually we see him there. Christianity would be false.
Sure.
I mean, that is one thing I would say that I love about Christianity, because it's falsifiable. It is rooted in history. That is this. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, is that simply enough to shake the rest of the teachings? Just go ahead. Yeah.
So I'm going there, and I love that question. So let's imagine that happens. Okay. We find the body of Jesus, and we say, well, he didn't resurrect. Now what happens? There is a problem, though, man. There is a problem. Christianity, the way he actually talks about it, and the way Paul talks about it, in terms of, let's call it this way for the sake of the argument, doctrine, wouldn't be true. But then what happens with these ideas that Jesus or Paul were sharing, that take people every day from complete and utter darkness, in terms of, we can start from drug abuse, from complete brokenness, from depression, from anxiety, from from a whole myriad of situations, and these teachings take people from this darkness to being people that are amazing people. They change their lives, they become incredible people, they change their marriages, they change their friendships, they start changing the world, they start thinking about themselves as a mean to an end and not as an end in itself, in themselves. They want to help people. So this would mean for me, Elliott, that there would be something about the teachings that we all, both Christians and non-Christians, we would recognize as objectively true, because we talk about love, we talk about the intrinsic value of humanity and all of this. So that would be difficult to debate. So it would be, we would come to the case of saying, well, he wasn't the Son of God, but then he was talking about something that is actually true.
Yeah.
That it would be a very weird, it would be weird, because we would be forced to abandon the thoughts that he was the Son of God. But then the fact that, love, these incredible statements of love people that have hurt you and all these things, that they would continue be true in a very strange way. So this would be liars talking about truth.
Yeah.
It would be very strange. What do you think about this, man?
Yeah, that's very, very interesting. Because again, as I hope was evident from the way that I asked the question, it is something that perplexes me a little. Because again, just like, a great analogy is Socrates. I mean, if Socrates was alive or not, anything we can gain from what he said or did, or other people just made up about him, we can still get it. But what you're saying is there truly is, there must be this kernel of truth in the faith, in the belief. Otherwise, you would have to, the rest of it would fall. And I just think that really is a beautiful point to really codify like that, because a lot of times from people on my side, they're attacking believers in this, you don't know what's true and not true, right? Like as if a believer would wake up every single morning knowing full and well that everything about their faith is false, and yet still profess it, right? But not the case, right? In fact, I think, all of the discussions that you have had really do indicate that faith isn't in practice, maybe whatever it is in definition or whatever it was historically, but it seems to be in practice something that truly does rely on a foundation of truth. And there are bullet points out there that go down that show whether or not this particular thing is more or less well founded. And I think I said it on the last discussion, but I'm so frustrated when I hear non-believers and skeptics say things like, you can't reason somebody out of a position they weren't reasoned into, because I think it's very obvious that you have thought about this. This isn't as if you just woke up and said, well, I was an atheist yesterday and now I'm a follower of Christ. There truly is a foundation that you're starting with, and you're working from there. And I just think that's absolutely wonderful and interesting, because it allows for these types of discussions.
Yes.
We can't have these types of discussions if, both of us are being dishonest and we're just, we just don't have any reason to hold our beliefs whatsoever. And I think it's good to show more and more out there that people on all sides of this topic, we have reasons, we have arguments, we have thought about things. And you mentioned being humble, and I think there's definitely a little bit of humble sauce that could go around for some skeptics, man.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
definitely think we could use some.
and with Christians as well, Elias,
Yeah,
with
yeah,
Christians too, definitely, man. Humbleness, very unexpectedly leads people to healthy doubting.
yeah, absolutely, man.
And I think that anything we end up believing in, if we're not humble enough to be open to be wrong about it, or
Mm,
honest enough to actually believe that it is true, which is, or that is
yeah,
the other side of it,
yeah.
definitely conversations will not get us anywhere.
It's a hard line to walk, man.
Yeah. Oh,
Definitely.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Now, the final question, man.
Okay.
If you got the few minutes, I
Yes.
don't know how to cram all this in, but this was just something that was nagging at me.
Let's do it.
And man, we touched on determinism and free will just a bit, and really in that last discussion, we only got my side of the determinism, and
Mhm.
and correct me if I'm wrong though, but you seem to fall more on the side of free will, right?
Yeah.
Could you explain that a little bit for me?
Yeah.
What does that look like? How does that manifest itself in life? And how does that work with God?
Mhm.
If God's in charge of us, he's the one that created everything, and it's his to do with. How does our free will work with that? I know this is something I think they've been talking about for 500 years. So see if you can just break all that down into a few minutes, Pedro. You got this.
The reason why, Elliot, the reason why I smile, there are two reasons actually. The first one is because, again, is a beautiful question, but the second reason is because I love this conversation
Yeah.
so much, man. Seriously, I just love this. This is, if perhaps one day we can actually talk about what happened in my past, because I was actually a
Sure.
professional musician myself.
Oh wow.
Yeah, we can talk about that later, another day. But and how now these conversations in philosophy and science. But well, let's just focus. I just enjoy this a lot. Um, okay, so I'm not all the answers that I'm giving to you. Definitely, I'm no expert. I'm no philosopher. I'm no historian, but I am alive and I experience things. And of course, I can give you my opinion about this. And I love reading a lot and be challenged every day by things that I read that support my perspective, and definitely always reading something every day that actually challenges my view on things. That's the way I approach things. Now that I've told you a little bit of the premise of my answer, I'll give you my answer concerning free will and determinism. I think we are free beings. I think free will is ultimately dualistic,
Mm,
and I'll explain to you why. The one of the most important things that happen in the Bible, in the first or two or few chapters in Genesis, is that uh, we have the prerogative of choosing whatever we want to do, but we don't have the option of choosing the consequences of those actions. We know what good and evil is, and we actually act upon it. So we are free to choose. And I'll get to the deterministic scientific brain side later. But this free will, which is, let's talk about strata. We can choose whatever we want. We are while we are alive. But then free will has a destination that is a dualistic destination. One is heaven, and the other one is hell. So all these options that we have are these decisions that we make are going to take us to one place or another place. That is the way God puts it, this reality, this dualism. So we have free will now, definitely. And these realities, we ourselves take us to one or the other. So I believe that in the realm of experience, we are free. We can do things as strange as and counterintuitive as being hungry and deciding not to eat. We go against nature and instincts. Like, we can choose not to eat when we know that if we don't eat, we would die. This is something so special from humans. This is very special. Now, that is my point of free will. Now, in terms of theology, now a little bit, the facts that God created everything out of nothing and created space and time, matter and energy, and he's outside and understanding it from the inside, the facts that he knows what I am going to do doesn't actually restrict my free will of doing it. I don't see any problem with this. And now, in terms of what we have discovered in science, I'm not that well versed, so Elliott, help me. It seems that the brain, there is a reaction in the brain that causes the thoughts before you actually have the thought, as I understand it.
Yeah, some interesting, I don't remember, I'm not going to be able to pull the name of it, but yes, essentially there's a good couple of studies, one in which they have the person say left or right, and they can actually predict, up to a few seconds to like 30 seconds, which, yes, definitely.
So in this perspective, which, by the way I see the scientific endeavor, I see it as, let's do it all the time. And my vision, my worldview as a follower of Christ is, whatever we're going to find, it is just the way God created it. I don't have any problems with this vision of, there are certain aspects of the biblical narrative. For some people, this is very important. Like, for example, the first 3 chapters of Genesis, 2 chapters are saying, oh, this happened this way, and that way. I don't have this type of perspective. I don't want to limit the God I believe in just to a few paragraphs, because definitely we don't learn about the laws of motion of Isaac Newton from the book of Obadiah, or the law of gravity from the book of Leviticus, that we know that. So when it comes to determinism, let's imagine that we actually find this, like the brain is in a way a weird separate entity from us that is actually making us do things that we actually don't want to do. Here's the question that comes to me. What about then the decisions that the brain decides to make concerning art, beauty, love, reality? The brain deciding to ask questions about itself, because it's the brain determining a question of the brain asking itself, why do I exist? So again, these questions, the only thing that it would do for me, Elliott, is to make the fact that there's a closed system, the universe, this is a closed system with many things happening, very strange happening. But it would definitely make me think, if I'm actually determined to even doubt about my own determinism, and I have this capacity, because that is a little bit of escapism, I call it, in terms of determinism. The fact that I can think about myself being determined to doubt my own determinism, I call it escapism. That poses for me more questions about the nature of reality that determinism is not able to truly define at that point. So that's where I sit in just a few sentences. At the level of,
I was just going to say, I think that's very helpful. I think that truly, I'm not sure on some of it, man. There's some of it that kind of, gets under my skin and wiggles a little for me. And I'm going to have to, I guess, and you know what, I don't know, man, but I guess we're gonna have to do more freaking talks. We're just gonna have to keep talking on this
Well,
stuff,
you know what,
man.
Elliot? It is going to be my pleasure to have you again in the show. And next time we have a conversation, these conversations have been more like let's get to know each other, the way we
Yeah,
think, and all of this.
let's
Next time,
battle.
next time, what we can do is to just talk about one topic and challenge the world out of our thinking.
Yeah, man. I think that
So
would be awesome because
yes.
truly, I think, um, yeah, I found so many of the things that you were saying so interesting, man. And I just, every single time we have gone back and forth, I have just had such an incredible joy.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, in this moment, Pedro, whether that comes from my brain or that comes from something supernatural, I'm fine with it, man. I'm having a damn good time, and I say we keep it going, man.
Yes, yes.
So it has truly been a wonderful, wonderful time getting to lob some questions at you, and just kind of getting a better picture of where you see some of these really difficult things kind of settling out in our
Yeah.
day-to-day lives. Because I think it's wonderful to be able to sit back, and have the 5 hour, 6 hour, what about this and what about this? But we still gotta wake up tomorrow, man.
You're
And
right.
it's wonderful to see that kind of come together and just
Mhm.
see where, hey, look, this is what I think, and this opens up some other doors for us we can go down. But here's just a little bit that just shows you how I wake up in the morning and how I get through the day. And
Definitely.
man, I'm not exactly positive on the time, but I think we're coming up to about an hour.
Yeah,
So
I think we have been talking for about 1 hour and 10 minutes, but it is more than 5 minutes. It's
well,
okay.
I don't want to keep you too much longer. And um, gosh, I mean, this is the problem. I've got just pages and pages here, Pedro, of wonderful things to talk about, and I'm
Ye-
not sure that we have anything else that we can just get to in these last few
Yeah,
minutes. But that's okay.
yeah, that's okay. I think what we can do is to leave it here, and then next time we could just in the future just choose a topic and
Yeah.
then just talk more about it. I'll be interested in seeing you actually having conversations with other people where I
Love
moderate
to.
them, because you truly, I was talking to some people the other day, Elliot, about you, and you truly personified that noble secular thinking that I think is so, it is just so pure. It's so noble. Like the facts that people say, hey, there's no God, because in my rational and experience, experiential life, I've come to this conclusion, but I care about I care about this conclusion. That is a very pure human doubting that we all need to go through.
Mhm.
I think that these conversations should happen more often. We are saying
Absolutely.
so many good things about each other. People are going to think these guys, these guys love each other so much.
Hey, that's all right, man.
Yeah.
Maybe some more people will watch this, and they'll understand how to have these dialogues in a better
Yes.
way. And I have to say, man, just to pile on to those wonderfully nice things you said about me, I have always felt that you exemplify, the believer that doesn't just read the one sentence and say, well, that's everything. You have thought about this stuff, man. This is something that it is obvious that there is argumentation, there are reasons, there are things that you work from, and that is just beautiful, because I feel too often in some of the echo chambers that exist out there for us in the non-believers realm, we just get into this rut of saying, you know, every Christian out there, you know, isn't rational, and every Hindu thinker just doesn't know about, and that's just wrong, man.
Yeah.
There are understandings, there are definitions that were parsed out and divided up, and we do have this incredible innate sense of asking and wondering, right, man?
Yes.
I mean, that's
Yes.
the whole point,
That's
right?
the whole point. That's the whole point.
And so far, man, I gotta say once again, every single discussion I've had has just been a freaking blast. So.
The same here, Elliot, man. Thank you very much for your time. And I appreciate you having me in your show today.
I'll throw the reins back to you, man. Take
Okay.
over.
And I'm just honored. And let's just keep up with the conversation. And for all of you that just watched the show, definitely email me if you would like to contact Elliott. I'm sure that Elliott is going to be more than open to have more conversations about this.
Absolutely.
And I hope that Elliott made a case about the existence of a pure, it is true and it exists, and it happens more often than many Christian things. There's a pure secular thought that is unbelievable, that is very healthy, that is a health doubt that we need to actually, from which we need to learn a little bit more. And I hope also that you guys enjoyed the conversation. As Elliott said, you can watch this show. You're watching it now on YouTube, I think. And you can also listen to it on podcasts and look at the archives, and you'll see all more conversations, and definitely part one when I was interviewing. And Elliott, the name of that episode was An Atheist Wonders About Life. And if you would like to support the show, you can do it also. You can start supporting the show from 1 cent to $1 a month to $5, whatever you guys want to do. If you guys would like for these conversations to be more prominent in today's world, it would be fantastic if you would like to help the show so in order to develop more material and content for you. Thank you very much, everyone, for being there. Thank you very much, Elliott. And I'll see you guys next time, okay?
Pedro, it was wonderful. Until next time, man.
Thank you.